just a few days later, those restrictions that we've been hoping would be lifted can't be lifted. So we and the rest of the country will be stuffed and have to not have to put up with social distancing and all the rest of it. But he can have his jamboree in Cornwall and glad hand all the leaders of the G7 summit countries. He's added to the G7 because they're not part of the G7. South Africa, they've got a variant. India, very bad variant. What do you think? 0345 6060 970 Patrick Pierce, it's LBC, Friday night, time is 6:15. Headlines, Holly Jones.
Linguist has found authorities didn't probably share intelligence about a terrorist who killed 2 people in the 2019 London Bridge attack. Boris Johnson has been cleared of wrongdoing in a new report about the refurbishment of his Downing Street clinic. Johnson and Johnson COVID-19 vaccine will be available in the UK later this year after being approved by the medicines regulator. The weather rather cloudy for most overnight. Early evening rain over western and central parts will fade and become patchy, a low of 7 degrees.
LBC travel line Dave Gloucester are severe delays for the M25 clockwise with queues from junction 8 for Reigate all the way round to junction 16 for the M40. Clockwise on the M25 there are also queues from junction 24 for Potterspar to junction 27 for the M11 after a car broke down earlier on. On the M25 anti-clockwise there are queues from junction 21 for the M1 to junction 17 for Maple Cross after an accident earlier on. On the M25 anti-clockwise it's also taking around an hour to queue to the Dartford Tunnel from junction 4 for Orpington. On the A3 northbound are long delays, 2 lanes are stay closed because of an accident between Burnt Common and Ockham Park. And on the trains, London North Eastern Railway services are suspended between King's Cross and Peterborough. It's because of overhead line problems. It means that Thames Link and Great Northern services through Finsbury Park are also suspended.
LBC.
Looking for a network that brings more to the table? At Tesco Mobile, get the incredible iPhone SE with a 12-megapixel wide camera and portrait mode to capture all your favourite moments for just $19.99 a month. And that's just for starters. You'll also get double data. That's a brilliant 6 gigs with Clock Card Plus on us for 6 months. This is Supermarket Mobile. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
On 31st of May, 36-month credit and rolling monthly user agreements with Tesco Mobile. Clock Card Plus, eligibility and conditions apply. Subscription renews at $7.99 a month unless cancelled. Double data activation required.
LBC.
Ah, the joys of the open road, and the closed road, and the partly flooded road, and the unmade road, and the slippery surface road, and a 45-degree mountain road. Land Rover Defender. Life is so much better without restrictions. To take one on an extended test drive throughout June, search Meet Defender and book your place now. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Terms and conditions apply.
If you're a freeholder or a right-to-manage company director, you'll know your sector never stops. So it's good to know that when your block is looked after by ABC Estates Block Management Team, our family business will never stop looking after you. Service charge collections, we never stop. Insurance, we never stop. Proactive and reactive maintenance, we never stop. Full transparency, we never stop. Non-stop block management services from all Martin Baines and Cuthbert. Call 0800 888 6688 or visit abcestates.co.uk.
Look at you in the mirror, proud as punch. Those Swift trunks still fit like a dream. There goes the boiler and the seaside brake. Relax. If your boiler's on its last legs, get a new one from British Gas and spread the cost over 3 years, interest-free. Plus, our home care customers get £200 off. So those legs could see some sun after all. Hurry, offer ends 31st of May. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply. British Gas New Heating Limited is a credit broker and uses a panel of lenders.
Did an illegal immigrant avoid deportation because he had a cat? Could the courts really order the death of your baby? Are unelected judges enemies of the people? Misinformation, political lies, and media spin have hidden the inconvenient legal truths the fake warmongers don't want you to know. Join me as I aim to expose them and reveal the truth about justice in an age of lies. I'm the secret barrister, and I hope fake law is not found in paperback.
From moving home to watching your kids leave home. From leaving a business to starting your own. Change isn't always easy, but switching to a Volvo plug-in hybrid is. Because with every purchase across the Volvo plug-in hybrid
Brussels on June the 21st. Well, if that's the case, I think people are going to be very unhappy about it, very cross about it, not least because of the screw-up over the Indian variant and the fact we didn't stop those flights coming in. I'd have banned them altogether. Wouldn't have just put India on a red list. I'd have just said no flights are coming in. But the Prime Minister didn't want to do that, of course, because he wanted to go to India to do the trade deal. And now we discover that even though India are not part of the G7 delegation, they are coming to Britain to COVID. And yet when they came as part of the Foreign Minister's delegation just a few weeks ago, 2 members of the delegation had to be isolated because, guess what? They had COVID. So the testing worked well there, didn't it? And yet we're going to have this all singing, all dancing jamboree designed to burnish the credentials of the PM. I get that, part of what they do, but they're just talking shops, aren't they? And it's all going to go ahead in court, including with the Indian delegation, including the South Africans. And they're not part of G7 either. And guess what? They've got a pretty lethal variant too. Are we mad? What do you think? 0345 6060 973. Martin's calling from Doncaster. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Jules. Yeah, look, I'm just ringing up. If we don't get restrictions lifted on the 21st of June, one person to blame, and that's Boris Johnson.
Right.
I've heard you talking in the morning with Kevin Maguire.
Yeah.
It was all because of the trade deal.
They did, that's right.
They put this country at risk again. You know, I mean, there's businesses open, the nighttime venue is open. You know, they've not even been open for the last 12 months.
No.
And you know what I mean? And if this goes pear-shaped in the next few weeks, yeah, I mean, and restrictions have to be put in place again. I can understand why we've got to put restrictions in because we need to save lives, like, but they've just put everything at risk again.
And you know, a lot of these pubs that have opened, Martin, they are running at a loss because social distancing means they can't have people standing at the bar, they can't serve people at the bar, they've got to employ people on the door to take all these blimmin' bureaucratic tests, and you can't have as many people in the pub. That's just the pubs. Then there's the restaurants, theatres, a lot of them just won't reopen, and I think if they don't reopen soon, they'll never reopen.
Yeah, and people are not going to put up with it because how long do they expect people to keep on putting all the restrictions we've got to get on with life? Like, this is what this vaccine's for and everything. You know, I've had the worst job I've ever said. I'll probably get the next one in 2 weeks' time if the brought it 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're asking, the government, them in power, they're asking people, to get the vaccine, and people are doing it. It's fantastic. But if they're not willing to do the basic things like locking countries down, when
Correct. All right, Martin, just to press your time, I'm going to move on, but thank you for that. That's Martin, not happy. I don't think people are going to be happy. Why should they be? It's all self-inflicted. And we've got this incredible vaccine rollout, and with the Indian variant, I know it's much more transmissible, but no evidence so far of any increase in hospitalisations or deaths. And our death rate now in Europe is, if you measure it per capita, we're now not even in the top 15. So what do you think about that? 0345 606093. Now, you'll have heard in the headlines about the police and MI5, the failure that was a factor in the terror killings at London Bridge. Remember, Saskia Jones, only 23, Jack Merritt, only 25, murdered by a terrorist who was supposedly rehabilitated. LBC's reporter Josh Giltrap has been following the inquest. Josh.
Well, the inquest has heard that Usman Khan was being investigated by MI5 and the police 11 months before he travelled down to London and fatally stabbed Saskia Jones and Jack Merritt at Fishmongers Hall back in 2019. Somehow, despite being monitored, he was allowed to do this alone. Now, the jury heard that he was showing signs of being increasingly isolated after 8 years in prison for attending a terrorist training camp in Pakistan. He also became increasingly frustrated with having failed to find employment. And one really sad irony of this is that Jack and Saskia were organising a rehab event for ex-prisoners that day at Fishmongers Hall. Now, as well as returning a verdict of unlawful killing, the jury also found that there was a failure to share information about Usman Khan, which may have contributed to the deaths. 23-year-old Saskia was volunteering at the event that day, and today her uncle Philip Jones criticised Fishmongers Hall itself, as well as the other agencies who all failed to communicate properly.
There are clearly other individuals and organisations encompassed within the state agencies that must take a share of responsibility for the events of the 29th of November 2019. There will be some detail we will never know, and this is for those who hide behind the cloak of secrecy to search their own conscience and review their own potential failings. However, it is beyond understanding and astonishing that witnesses have reviewed their part and accepted where failings occurred. It has been unsavoury and distressing to hear a number of witnesses trying to avoid proper consideration of their part in the death and injury of innocent people. The apparent unwillingness of some of those involved in the management of Usman Khan and the organisation of the event at Fishmongers Hall on the 29th of November 2019 to take any responsibility and show some remorse in the presence of the family has been very frustrating and ultimately distressing for us. The conclusion of the inquest does not in any way ease the pain of our loss of Saskia and leaves a number of unanswered questions relating to failures of a number of organisations and individuals.
We did hear from police today as well. Neil Basu is Assistant Commissioner in the Met and gave a statement saying what happened was simply unacceptable. Home Secretary Priti Patel has also put out a statement saying her thoughts are with the family and friends of Jack and Saskia and that lessons must be learned. What those lessons are, though, is for MI5 police and probation officers to reflect on why this was allowed to happen and what can be done to prevent further avoidable tragedies from happening in the future.
All right, that's LBC's reporter Josh Giltrap, and I'll add to that why was Usman Khan allowed out of prison? He was given an indeterminate sentence in 2012, told he'd have to serve a minimum of 8 years. This terrorist attack happened in 2019. How was he allowed out? Absolutely outrageous. Another failing by the authorities who decided he'd been rehabilitated. Well, he hadn't. He was vicious and he plotted, and the people he murdered, he knew from the rehabilitation because they were working to help rehabilitate people like him. A shameful chapter, I'm afraid, and terrible for their families. Poor the families of Saskia Jones, only 23, and Jack Merritt, only 25. We'll carry on talking about whether this G7 summit should go ahead, as it seems more likely that they're building us up to potentially not lift those restrictions on June 21st because of unreliability over the Indian variant. Mark's calling from Gravesend. Mark, you're a new caller, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I'm going to be so disappointed if they don't let us back out again on the 21st of June. I mean, I've got things arranged with my friends and family and everything. On like the 10th of July, we're all going out to have a big bash over a town called Rochester near me. And you know, looking at the figures, okay, so the infection rates are going up, but the number of people in hospital is still coming down. I mean, over the past 24 hours, down 28. Number of deaths, as sad as it is, it's on 10 at the moment as well. And I just can't understand why government are saying that. So I just hope we're allowed out.
And what do you think about all these politicians descending on us for that great big bean feast in Cornwall in June? Just a few days. It'll end on June the 13th, and the Prime Minister will announce the lockdown lifting or not the next day.
I think it'd be so wrong to do that. I think if they're building us up to keeping us locked up a little bit more, then they shouldn't be really sending on Cornwall. I think Cornwall's going to be busy enough as it is. I mean, I'm planning to go down there in August, but to allow everyone to allow that summit to go ahead, I think would just be wrong to do it.
Well, good to hear from you, Mark. Call again. Mark's a new caller to LBC, calling from Gravesend in Kent. Just before we go to headlines, this is what the Business Secretary Party Cartel had to say to LBC's Nick Ferrari. Don't need to
I really want to focus on the 21st of June, but I can't give guarantees on the 28th of May, which is today. And we've said all along we're doing what we said all along, which is looking at the data. But I'm working very hard, as you know, to make sure that we can reopen on the 21st of June.
That's the Business Secretary Party Cartel. Wasn't very reassuring, was it? We'll carry on taking your calls on that. We're also going to be talking about the new vaccine, which is going to be administered in Britain. It's a one-jab vaccine, which is great news and could be another game changer. And still, our vaccine rollout is remarkable. Nearly 40 million now have had the first jab. 25 million, nearly 40 million have had the first jab. 2 jabs. 25 million, 1 jab. So it's still going well, but that still may not be enough if the government decides to keep us closed down. Do call, tell me what you think. 0345 60970. Andrew Pierce, it's LBC Friday night. Time is now 6:30. Headlines. Holly Jones.
The families of the 2 victims of the 2019 London Bridge terror attack say they were let down by police, MI5 and the probation service. The inquest into the deaths of Saskia Jones and Jack Merritt found they were unlawfully killed by convicted terrorist Usman Khan after a series of failures by authorities. Boris Johnson has been cleared of wrongdoing in a new report about the is believed to be 85% effective in stopping serious illness. The weather rather cloudy for most overnight. Early evening rain over western and central parts will fade and become patchy, a low of 7 degrees.
Leading Britain's conversation at the weekend, David Lammy.
Lived through hell this year. Boris Johnson sat with his feet up, chucking fuel onto an already burning fire.
Matt Fry.
Is Keir Starmer the man?
Yes, I think he's absolutely capable.
Capable doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement to me.
Rachel Johnson.
What are we waiting for? Why are we letting a small section of the population probably throw the unlockdown way off course?
Listen across the weekend live on Global Player. LBC.
I want to give my newsagents a shout out. I'm there in morning for the papers and whenever we run out of milk, and I couldn't have got through the last year without them. Now it's your turn. American Express are asking you to give your favourite small business a shout out. Search Shop Small Pledge to nominate your choice, and you could be rewarded with a £250 voucher to spend there. Let's go shop small with American Express.
Eligible small businesses only. See promoentries.com/shopsmallpledge for full T's and C's.
Hey Harry. Hello mate. Any tips for the big game?
It's a tough one to call. Your best bet is to ask Michael Owen. Yeah, Michael. Hello, Gaffer. You got any tips for the football? Oh, I think there'll be plenty of goals. No, I can't see that. Both defences are strong. Yeah, but the little fella up top's lightning. Sorry, lads. I've got to go. I've got money on the next race.
Whether you listen to Harry or Michael, make your best bet at BetVictor. Search online for latest offers. 18 plus, be gamble aware. Please gamble responsibly.
Hybrid. Parks itself.
Are we there yet?
Only 23 hours, 52 minutes and 22 seconds to go, darling. Really get to know before you buy with a Ford 24-hour test drive. But hurry, the clock's ticking. Promotion ends the end of May. Ford, bring on tomorrow. Search Ford 24-hour test drive. At participating Ford dealers, test drive subject to availability.
Do your teeth stop you from smiling and eating? Do you hate the thought of false teeth? Talk to TDC about Smile in a Day dental implants. TDC Smile in a Day dental implants look and work just like real teeth, so you can eat what you want and smile when you want.
I just wish I'd gone to TDC years ago.
Let TDC restore your teeth and your smile. Book your consultation today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
This is Network Rail with some important news about the May Bank holiday. While most of the rail network will be open, some services will be affected as we work to deliver improvements across the railway. The affected days are Saturday the 29th until Monday the 31st of May. To keep your plans on track, please check before you travel.
Do you start your day with eggs or avocado on toast? A Sunday lunch, a sandwich or a full-on roast? If you're cooking just for one or you're a host for the most, there's an avocado just for you.
With more choice than any other supermarket.
There's an avocado just for you.
What about me? I'm a flexi pesky fruitarian.
There's an avocado just for you.
Geographical restrictions apply. Verification via info@ocadoRetail.com.
This is LBC with Andrew Pierce.
We will carry on talking about the possibility of those restrictions not being lifted on June the 21st and whether that G7 summit, which is a great jamboree for politicians, whether it should go ahead. But very big story today, a new COVID vaccine, the fourth, has been approved for use in the UK. It's the Janssen single-dose vaccine. It's made by, who's it made by? It's part of, I can't find it. Yeah, Johnson & Johnson, of course. Their pharmaceutical arm is Janssen, and it uses the same technology as the Oxford AstraZeneca jab. Apparently it's going to be more suitable for older adults. Well, let's find out all about it from Robert Reed, who's Professor of Infectious Diseases at the University of Southampton, and he's a member of the Joint Committee for Vaccination and Immunisation. Professor, you're very welcome.
Hello, nice to see you.
Yeah. Now, how important is this Janssen single-dose vaccine? Should we be excited, pleased?
We should be pleased. It's the fourth vaccine in the armamentarium. It's good news. It's highly efficacious. We've seen efficacy of around 85%. But the big thing about this vaccine sets it apart is its single
flexibility as we deploy our vaccines in the UK. It helps us with the more difficult ones, which are people where it's difficult to get the second dose into. For example, care homes, homeless folks, people who are traveling abroad for whatever reason. So it's a very useful vaccine to have in the armamentarium.
And we have to wait what is it, a matter of weeks or months before it comes on stream train?
It should be becoming available within the next 4 to 6 weeks. The government's ordered 20 million doses, which is an appropriate number for us, and it's going to be pretty useful to have this flexibility, including when we go into the possible autumn third dose period, which we're currently discussing.
Well, when we might need a booster jab, you mean?
We might need booster jabs. We'll get more information on that over the next few months.
And why might this one be better for older people? Is it because, as you say, Professor, sometimes it's not so easy to give a second jab to somebody in a care home who's somebody's older, they might not be very well or something?
Exactly so. It's social reasons. It's difficult to access populations. It's having to take vaccines out to care homes, in particular residential centres. And the other thing about it is that, unlike the Pfizer vaccine, it can be stored at refrigerated temperature. It can even stand some time at room temperature. So it's a pretty flexible vaccine, which is what makes us so excited about it.
And are you encouraged still about the way the vaccine rollout is continuing in Britain? Vaccines are still going in people's arms at an incredible rate of not, it seems.
Absolutely, and yes, I believe we're in a good place to complete the rollout to adults, all adults, in other words, over 18-year-olds, by the end of July, which is a fantastic achievement by this country. And that will put us all in a safer place. When all of our adults are vaccinated, we'll be in a much safer place. We can perhaps be a little bit more light-hearted about the future.
Yeah, but some adults are still refusing, of course, to have the vaccination. We saw in some of the papers, and if you've read about this, Professor, a very well-known former England rugby player, Henry Slade, making a big point about the fact he's not having it. I wish people like that wouldn't say that, because it may encourage other anti-vaxxers to go down the same route. Isn't it better to hear nothing from those sort of people?
Well, I mean, look, vaccination's the way out of this pandemic. Vaccination's going to give us our freedom back. It's going to keep our loved ones safe and healthy. On the other hand, I'm very pleased to say that vaccination in this country is not mandatory. People aren't forced to have the vaccine. They run towards the vaccine. They're not dragged towards the vaccine. So, I think most of the general public is right behind this vaccine program. And that's a really positive thing, because it's going to be a fantastic achievement when we get all our adults vaccinated.
And if I could ask you just finally, how worried are you about the Indian variant? We know its transmissibility is causing concern, but thus far, looking at the hospital admissions and the death rate, no appreciable increase.
You're quite right. We're still gathering the information. We've got to keep a really close eye on it. But the information that came out the other day showing continuing vaccine efficacy against this variant that was first identified in India is really encouraging. In other words, the vaccines that we've got rolling out at the moment continue to be active against that virus. So I'm quite encouraged by that information.
Glad to hear that. That's Robert Reid. He's Professor of Infectious Diseases at the University of Southampton. He's also a member of the Joint Committee for Vaccination and Immunisation, otherwise known as the JCVI Committee. Well, let's talk now about the G7 summit, because it's going to be millions and millions of pounds for Cornwall's economy. It will put Cornwall on the international map. There'll be TV cameras from 12 countries. The head of the European Union will be there, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the United States, the Canadian Prime Minister, the French President. We're inviting him, not letting our tourists in, is he, without any restrictions? Germany Chancellor Merkel, Draghi from Italy, the Japanese Prime Minister, and then, of course, the Australian, Indian, South Korean and South African Prime Ministers and Presidents. A huge showcase, but should it go ahead? Terry's calling from Camborne in Cornwall. So, Terry, the big old Fiesta is coming down to a town near you. What do you make of that?
I just think it's really exciting, honestly. In Cornwall here, there's a real big buzz. I mean, this is a great opportunity for Cornwall we've become quite a good area for piloting, new projects, new innovations. The money that it could bring is just really good. I mean, already, I've been in the hotel that we're going to be staying in, and honestly, when you sat out on the balcony, if you didn't know, you would think you were in Barbados. I mean, it is absolutely stunning and beautiful. And already roads are being closed down, diverted routes, to start protecting, the route and stuff around it. But for Cornwall, I just think it's a great opportunity.
Well, let me bring into the conversation, Terry, Sarah, who's from Bude in Cornwall. Sarah, do you agree with Terry? This great opportunity for Cornwall, she says.
No, I don't think at all. I think it's disgusting. Why can't they do it virtually? We follow all the guidelines here in Bude. We keep our distances, we wear our masks. We're already inundated with visitors that are just ignoring all rules and regulations. So to me, bad idea.
What about
fuming over it?
But what about the money and income it's going to generate for Cornwall, Sarah, and the fact it will put Cornwall, the beautiful part of Cornwall, which is Cardiff Bay, on the international tourism map?
What about all the people that might personally die from it? Our grandmas, our children, our daughters, our sons.
Yeah, all right, Sarah. Well, Terry, what do you say to that? What about the people who could die? They could be bringing in an infection. The Indians are bringing in a delegation, and we're all worried about the Indian variant.
Well, as far as the southwest goes, we are one of the best places that have actually been covered with vaccines. And when you look at the data, already when we did the last unlocking, we was all made aware that, of course, cases would rise. Now, the trouble is with this Indian variant, as far as I can see, and I follow it all very closely, there is no data that this is increasing deaths or it's increasing hospitalisation. So at some point, we're all taking the vaccine. You have to have confidence.
Sarah, what about that? We should be more confident, Sarah. The vaccination rollout's going very well in Cornwall, Terry says.
We've got one main hospital in Cornwall, and that's Truro. We've already got the highest amount of elderly people. They may have been vaccinated, but I wouldn't risk it. Why can't they do it virtually like everything else?
Yeah,
we've already got Biden's tanks and security here. How he's going to get the beast around such a small amount of roads, I've no idea.
So you're not going to be out waving your union flag, Sarah, to greet all these people?
No, I'll be out